Perfect. All right, again, I'm Rich Calabrese. I'm with Vault AI, and I'm talking today about how to use AI, not just for content, but also for marketing decisions. And what I'm not going to be talking about is like, what is AI? What is machine learning? I think some of us mostly know that. I'm also not going to talk about the ethics and morals of AI and machine learning, because there's another seminar for that. So with that being said, in my career, I've worked the last 10 years in consumer insights for media and entertainment, which is not a long time, considering there's probably folks here who have been here in this industry for quite a bit. But in my roles in insights and product, and now on the client strategy side, I hear three common challenges every day. The first, when I talk to research teams, is how much they are being asked to do with either little budget and or little resources, human resources to help. Talked about it earlier, how much data there is and how much to sift through. That's important to know because with access to so much data, there's also a lot of noise in that data, and you're having a hard time finding which ones actually provide the signal to their answer. And with all that data, you really have to balance which data stream is going to give you the insights the fastest, okay? And not necessarily always the fastest, but it has to be the ones that bring you the most quality to the answer that your stakeholders are asking you. And so I think universally between everybody who works in consumer insights and marketing strategy across the networks and studios, everybody's looking ways to find accurate, fast decisions. If you can make a decision faster, the process gets moving a little bit quicker, and you can have more time to evolve creatively on a project. And so, with that being said, oftentimes, our clients come to us and say, we want to do things faster. We hear that AI can be helpful to make these faster decisions, and they're leveraging emerging tech, which is sometimes tough to do because internal stakeholders and senior leadership might be kind of stuck in their ways with specific research methods and data that they use, but sometimes those methods are very expensive and very time-consuming. And so that's where we have to bring in data, new technology, in this case AI, and then human expertise. And that's what kind of Vault does. And so I can't come up here and talk about AI without necessarily talking about the company that I work for. We are an AI-powered consumer insights company. I mean, we help marketers and content researchers to make decisions faster using the power of data. What's important to know for everybody in here is that we're pulling data from story and behavioral data sets. We are not pulling data from surveys or focus groups. So that's different from more of a traditional model of research. And so how do entertainment companies today use AI insights? Well, the answer is simple. They're using it right now across the entire content lifecycle. All right? So from macro high-level genre studies all the way to positioning studies, it can be used in various ways. And every day we're working with our clients to create new applications to give them the data and insights faster. And so how does it all work? Well, AI and machine learning always starts with data. And so for us, we have a database of story elements and consumer behavior data. We then have to understand what is the content we're looking at, what content that we're testing, what's the movie, what's the TV show. And then it's on us as an AI company to create models that actually predict outputs that our clients and their stakeholders want answers to. And finally, it's up to people like me to take that data and have it make sense to the client. And so when we talk about data and informing our models, our database is 60,000 titles large. That's over 3 decades worth of research. That's US and global research. We're tagging stories and characters in 30 countries around the world. And so I'll talk about how we tag a story in just a second. But let's talk about what the input is. So how does a client even get AI insights on content? Well, they have to give us that content. And it can be as little as a series Bible to a fully shot film. We've even done book series and podcasts, as podcasts are now emerging as television series as well. And so it's really easy for clients to give that information to us because honestly, it's very high security. When you run a focus group and show a movie, or you're working on maybe a new Avengers title, you kind of have to hide that it's the Avengers. And so the insights are always a little bit taken with a grain of salt. Where with us, we only have 4 or 5 people actually accessing that content instead of hundreds looking at that content through a survey or a focus group. And so I talked about story data, our story database, the 60,000 title story betas. And so what we've done to create these insights faster is that we actually use our technology and then human analysts to place different story elements onto each piece of content. So take an example of Peaky Blinders, okay? When we ingest this title into our database, we're looking at key themes. We're looking at the characters. We're looking at the genre of this show, whether it's scripted or unscripted. We're looking at the setting, where it takes place. We're looking at things like emotions. We're looking at tone seen across the entire series or in the pilot. And we're also applying metadata to our database for this specific show. Now, what's important to know is that I only showed like 30 story elements. This show in our database has 500 story elements. So we get very specific to get a really basically a content DNA strand for Peaky Blinders. And we have that strand for 60,000 titles, both US and global. But with all that data, it would be cool to be able to see like story trends over time, or story trends by Peacock, story trends by HBO Max, or for Universal Pictures. But story trends is cool, but not that cool unless you can tell the client whether it's important or not. And so we have to take in behavioral data, which is unbiased because we're taking actual consumer action data and mapping it back to the shows and movies themselves, and trying to find trends within certain story elements and if they're impactful most often in content. And so we do that with things like Nielsen data, SVOD, linear data. We'll pull in Facebook data, Wikipedia search, Google search, to predict different outcomes. It's not always about how much money is this content going to make, but it's, will this content spark curiosity? And what parts of that content? Is it the father-son relationship? Is it the best friend coming-of-age story? Which part of that story elements are going to drive certain outcomes? And this is where it really takes someone in a team of media entertainment professionals to work with our engineers to create actual data points that our clients want. And so as we're talking about getting insights, like what are those insights, right? What are the outcomes and the diagnostics that clients are asking us for? And it's right here. They certainly want to understand, like, based upon your data, does this story have a high chance to resonate with 18 or 18-year-old women? That's a great question to ask. We can help them understand that and what are the reasons why. But we also can do really interesting things like understand freshness, which I think is my favorite, because that is one of those things where you're taking a story like Peaky Blinders and saying, how unique is it compared to everything in your database? How unique is it compared to everything in the genre? What about the channel that it's on? What about for the demographic that we're targeting? How unique is it? And so from there, you can understand what's going to drive box office, or for this instance, ratings. But what might drive ratings might not drive social buzz. And so we can understand those levers for both the creative side, the content side, but also provide insights for positioning on the marketing side. But it's important to note that just because we are AI, it's not always created equal, okay? In order to have a quality model, strong data inputs equates to strong data outputs. We have to have an algorithm that is trained and, most importantly, validated, which takes sometimes weeks and months to make sure that the outputs that we're getting on some of these metrics are accurate. We're talking about how well you train the AI. Well, we can train our engineers can train the AI, but they need to have kind of industry expertise to be able to make sure that they're creating metrics that make sense and our clients are asking us for. And then it's also how about you interpret the results? Because look, getting raw data back from an AI machine learning model is sometimes messy, but that's the case with a lot of data. but it takes someone who understands the industries that can then, or the industry to be able to tell the story of the data and what it means. And so I'm gonna give you some quick examples about how clients are using AI insights in their decision making, whether it's with our company or internally or with other companies, is that they're doing large database studies, understanding how the AI takes those story elements and then clusters them out. So this is an example of the reality competition and game show subgenre. And so we had some ideas of what those subgenres would be for this genre, but the way the AI clustered the different story and show mechanics together brought about a brand new genre that us and the client were not thinking about. Green light and concept. So this is like a lot of the work that we do because it comes in mass. It's like, can you test these 30 pilots for us and let us know which ones are going to hit our best for our network, or which story drivers have DEI storylines that we're trying to hit on as a company and a brand? We can produce these things pretty fast, so it's really easy for us to supply these. But a really interesting question that we're doing a lot of this is this concept, is this show, is it for Peacock? Is it for HBO Max? And so we can do platform fit as well. So production companies and development folks really like to talk to us about that. And last, global positioning strategy. And this is a kind of a key advantage, I think, for AI. So if anybody here has been part of a global positioning study for a TV show or a film, or knows anything about that process, it's expensive and it's really time consuming. It can take weeks and months to do this. What's great about AI is that once you train a global model and update it over time, you can get the same insights in Germany that you can for the US with just clicking the button to change the model. The insights that are different, the data is different in terms of how the scores might come out to be, but it's really amazing to have our clients see a global methodology that's the same across markets done extremely fast. And so you talk about the entertainment evolution, is that like as companies and researchers start to have access to AI tools, the time in which they can make decisions globally for their content decreases drastically. One of the things about AI I want to point out, which is really cool, that a lot of clients take advantage of, specifically in the marketing aspect, is we have this idea of dynamic optimization. So I talked to you guys about Peaky Blinders and these story elements that make up Peaky Blinders. But on the concept level, what if we found out that one of the characters just wasn't impactful to the storyline? Or we had a character, instead of having it be a brother-brother relationship, let's just see if the father-son relationship would actually score better for older men. And so we have the opportunity to kind of A/B test in real time, not just with story, but also with marketing. So for instance, if we have a horror film that's usually younger audiences, but there's an actor that resonates really well with older men, but we know that older men don't like horror films, how can we promo test different pieces of content that maybe alleviate the horror, but bring up the relationship and the life story of the older man in that movie? And then what are those scores that come back with? Are they successful or not? And so this allows us to really create new metrics in real time. If we didn't have this opportunity to do this, you'd have to like go refield a survey or go have another focus group to see if we should increase the horror. So it allows, again, our clients to be able to ask really interesting questions around story and marketing and get answers quickly. And so we talk about why AI, as I kind of sum up here with a minute left. It really is about ease and speed. AI and any new technology is really meant to be efficient and create decisions faster, but also just the scale of being able to answer global questions for the first time with a consistent methodology very fast. And then just the quality of the insights. Having a team, like any AI team in the entertainment industry, doing some of the heavy lifting for you in terms of the tech and the engineering of the tech, and then bringing those insights to you on a level that makes sense for you and for your stakeholders. And so as you guys think about AI and how it's affecting content decisions, this is not the future, it's happening kind of right now. And it's very cool to see. If you have questions about consumer insights and progressive innovations within consumer insights, I'd love to connect. But thank you for sitting in my presentation. I hope it was an interesting 15 minutes, and enjoy the rest of your conference day.